All right, everybody. Welcome to the Love What You Do show. And my guest today is Jennifer Leigh, and we're going to be talking about the release of her new book, The Unraveling. And Jennifer has gone from someone who's been disconnected, from really who she didn't know herself as, to really transforming into a beautiful being that's full of passion, purpose, and love. Is that accurate, Jennifer?
That's accurate, yes.
All right.
I will embrace that.
And so we're just going to, I like to keep these really authentic and really just let people know who you are. You've transformed yourself into really, I can tell that there's an energy there for you. Like you're aligned. And who were you before, all this happened?
Well, I had a lot of trauma in my childhood. So I was very disconnected from my body. A lot of times most of the time when you live in trauma and you've had experiences that kind of make you not feel safe to be in your body, you will disconnect and you will fragment. So I had a lot of those different experiences, and it led to a deep depression. So I think I was in severe survival mode. And I was looking for safety outside of myself because I was very disconnected. So that just led to basically living in a very unconscious life, seeking only safety out of fear. So I attracted people in my life who reflected that habit, that pattern, that behavior pattern. And it definitely taught me a lot. And it really was what brought me to the place where I had to completely let it all go and start over and figure out, okay, how do I reconnect to myself? Who am I? All of that.
I really like because I've gone through this myself, of that moment when you realize you're the person who's in the center of it all. And really owning that, not that you're causing everything like from a victim standpoint, but you realize like, oh my God, like I have a responsibility in this, Can you share maybe that some of those? I'm sure there's a lot of moments. It's been a lot of moments for me of like, oh crap, I'm the guy. Oh crap, I've been doing this. Oh crap, oh crap, oh crap. And then you realize, okay, I got to do something about this.
Yeah. So I would say the biggest moment for me in that, and like you said, there were little moments that I recognized that along the way and took action. Like in my marriage, when I was failing at life. I was sick physically. I was deeply in depression, very disconnected from my husband, and just really trying to perform. So that first moment of, is this the life that I want? Is this the life that I want for my kids? And then really owning that moment of, I get to decide. So that's when I got divorced. And it was kind of a fumbling around in the dark for about 4 years until it got to the point where I didn't have a choice. So I spiraled into a deep depression in November of 2016. It was a rough year. I had emergency surgery. I quit my job at a spa to start my own business. I had a car accident. I got certified in a very highly energetically connecting modality called craniosacral therapy. Mm-hmm. So all of these moments kind of made those cracks in the facade that I was trying to hold it all together. And I spiraled, and it was the worst depressive episode that I've ever had. So it was the week of Thanksgiving, and I had a suicide plan. I was going to do it while my kids were gone at their father's house. And I was, for whatever reason, like it's one of those things you don't know why, you don't know how, but there was a pause that I took, and I decided to take a different route, to wait. I knew my kids were going to come home, and I knew if I could make it till then, I would hold on. And I talked to my mom, and I had decided I'm going to check myself into a psychiatric hospital because I didn't want to follow through with that.
Yeah.
I wanted to live. I just didn't know how. So the way I kind of describe it is I basically, I had built my own prison mentally, and I was a victim and I was stuck. And then I manifested an actual prison in my life at that psychiatric hospital. I mean, I had no idea what it was going to be like, but you're basically a prisoner. You know, you don't get to decide when you eat. You don't get to decide when you sleep. They're constantly checking on you. And it was in that moment that I said, what control do I have right now in this place? I was with other women who were dealing with the same stress and emotions and energy that I was. And it really helped me to have this perspective of, wait a second, what can I do to change this? And that was really the moment that that was my before and after moment, really, of taking charge of my beliefs, taking charge of the way that I acted on my thoughts, and really taking my power back. That was the beginning of taking my power back. And I think that's what you do when you take accountability for how you've shown up in life and what you've
Yeah.
allowed to happen.
It's a really, like for me, it wasn't just like, there's a series of moments, right, that kind of accumulate, and then literally like feeling backed into a corner. For me, it was, what are they going to think about me, and what are they going to think about me over here, and what are they going to think about me over here? And I felt the similar situation of like, I got to do something, like I can't keep having these thoughts over and over and over, right? um and it's a very, and that was just like, your situation was even more compounded because you're married, you had kids, and there's a lot of responsibilities there. um what were some of the thoughts that you were thinking, if you don't mind some of the sharing some of those, that like if someone's listening that that might be resonant, that maybe they can feel. What I'm trying to get at is like, the person who may have some of those same thoughts, right, and they think that they're unique to them. But when we share them, they're like, oh my God, Jennifer had that too. Like, I'm not alone, because I know I've had some of those thoughts. And then when I've shared them, I'm like, oh, this person has them too. Okay. Maybe it's not me. Maybe it's, this thing in between my ears that makes up a bunch of crap.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's interesting because that's exactly what happened in that psychiatric hospital with those women who were talking. And I realized I wasn't alone in this, that this is actually something that other people experience. And those thoughts are, we specifically examined those thoughts, within the classes that we had together. And it was all stemmed around self-hatred. I hated myself. I was unworthy. I didn't deserve good things. Um, I was never going to live up to other people's expectations. They were all just really based around self-hatred and unworthiness.
Yeah. And during that time, how did you feel when you heard other people going through the same thing?
Um, Gosh, my heart broke for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was angry. I was angry that these other women had experienced what I had experienced as far as trauma and abuse, and the psychological and emotional abuse that I had experienced over over those, I guess it was about 38 years of, because it started when I was very young. I was molested as a child, and then living in a home where, you really didn't have a voice, and you didn't have that safety and that value, and all those things that you're supposed to instill in your children when they're younger. And it was like I had to reparent myself all over again. And I think in that space of recognizing that other people were feeling that way, it was like this energy kicked in and said, you were meant for more than this. These women here, they were meant for more than this. And so it was like this mixture, this emotional roller coaster of just sadness, and my heart was breaking hearing their stories. And then this anger of just justice, of wanting them to know that they're valuable and that they're worthy. And then this kind of place of introspection of like, oh, wait, that's me too. I deserve love. I deserve to be heard and seen. And it started with me recognizing that in myself, and recognizing that is only going to ever come externally once I do the work internally
Yeah.
to love myself. And that's where it all started.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's so cool that it's driven you to, make a complete change in your life, to write a book, to go through everything that you've had to go through, in order to, what I hear is, make a difference for other people.
Yes.
Which is really, really, really cool. Right. And once you get on the other side, you can look back and you see the illusion, right, of everything that you're putting yourself in. But it's not hard. It's not easy to see it while you're on the inside. Once you step through it, then then you can really see it. Right.
Yeah. And I used to get really angry at the idea of, victim shaming and people saying, because I have so many amazing, loving people in my life. And it was really difficult for them to understand, like, gosh, we love you so much. And we think you're so great. And look at all these great things that you have in your life. And they couldn't understand how from within myself, I couldn't see that. And it was that disconnection, as I was not connected to my true self that acknowledged and saw my value and saw my worth. And so they could have shouted it at me all day, and they did. But until I honored that and recognized it within myself, but when it's like this, you're in this helpless place and feeling victimized because you legitimately have been treated poorly and legitimately have sustained a lot of pain and trauma. But at the same time, like, that decision of, I am going to rescue myself. I'm going to heal myself.
Yeah.
And that is the most loving, most compassionate thing that you can do for yourself, is to make that choice. And it really is a choice. And it's a difficult choice at first, but it's one of those things that you're like, gosh, I'm so free now. And it's worth it 100%.
Yeah. When you look back at, if you imagine yourself right now, and there's two of you, okay? And one person's in the past, and they're looking at the mirror and how they saw themselves and how you saw you. And then now you're looking in the mirror and how you see you.
Mm-hmm.
What, tell me a little bit about how you saw yourself then and
Yeah.
compared to now.
I think about this. I couldn't see myself, and that was the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I look back at her, and it's like looking at my child and just having so much love and compassion for her, because she couldn't see her worth and her beauty and what she had to offer the world. And she was looking around everywhere else for that. And so that's kind of what I saw, was just this emptiness, because I wasn't connected to who I was. I was very empty. And, I don't want to say that I was broken. I was just disconnected. There was nothing that needed to be fixed. I just needed to open my eyes and see.
Yeah. A lot of, I have found through my own personal journey, and I've heard a lot of other people through some of the men's work I've done, it's very similar stories, just a different lens. And that when you get to discover that point, it's very freeing,
Mm-hmm.
it's very freeing.
It's so expansive.
Yeah. You get, I get a whole new sense of what's possible in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, if I'm not a piece of crap, I might be able to do this. Oh my God, I didn't realize that. And then, oh my God, this thing could happen. And then they might actually believe in me,
Yeah.
Oh, I might believe in myself.
Right.
Maybe I can write a book or something. Okay. And then it starts showing up, right?
Right. And it's not, it's a simple thing, but it's definitely multifaceted in that there's layers that you have to dig through in order to reconnect. And, that process for me over the last three and a half years, really has helped me to develop this process, this practice that I use daily. And I use it when I know I'm out of alignment. When I experience a negative emotion, I know that there's something I need to stop and check.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something, it's either I'm not loving myself or I'm holding myself back in some way because of fear. And so I started this process unknowingly back then, of know yourself, love yourself, own your worth, embrace your power. And so I know at some point in that process, there's somewhere I need to check. Either I'm not knowing myself, or there's a part of me that I need to discover, or I'm not loving myself, or I'm not owning my value and my worth. And then, once all those things just kind of bring you back into alignment of like, okay, this is where I'm at. So I can literally deal with anything that's happening in the world on a personal level from that place of alignment. And I really just started that by building my foundation on the 4 agreements. And so I'm constantly shifting back to those 4 agreements too, of like, mostly, and my one thing is don't take things personal. I really keep that in my consciousness a lot. Don't take things personal, especially right now with all the, the tension over all the different sides, the divide that we're experiencing right now. We take it personal, and being able to just allow somebody to be in their journey where they're at and hold space for that without getting your ego involved is so empowering. And you just experience so much freedom in that, because you just let them be them. I mean, because I still have to co-parent in a very contentious relationship and in a very contentious situation. And so I'm constantly having to bring myself back to, don't take it personal. Don't take it personal.
Yeah.
So
They're going through their journey,
Exactly. They have their own things to learn.
Yep. And I have found too, I don't know if you found this, but generally, we attract the people in our life that we need to cause a breakthrough.
Yeah.
And if it's something that, like in your circumstance and in many others, sometimes that can be very traumatic, but that goes to the level of depth that you need to break through too.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard, and I'm sure I don't know if you've transcended this yet, but like looking at your ex-husband and seeing like, man, I really learned a ton, through that experience.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I still to this day, I will say he is my greatest teacher. Absolutely. We could not be more opposite in every single facet. And so his role was really to draw me out, he's on this far side, I'm on this far side. And the goal was basically he drew so much out of me that I needed to heal, that I needed to face, that I needed to recognize, that I needed to own. And so I can shift into gratitude for him, even though still having to shift, still shifting. But I can still have so much gratitude. And that's another thing is like, I look back on all the way that I was in survival mode for 38 years. I look back on all of that as an education. I experimented. I figured out what was not right for me. And I am able to now have a frame of reference of like, oh, nope, that behavior did not work for me. That belief didn't work for me. That thinking didn't work for me. So now I get a shift out of it. And so I can look at all of those years and not feel guilty or shame about what I allowed to happen, what I allowed myself to go through, because it has served such an incredible purpose. And I have said this so many times lately, I feel so equipped to deal with what is happening in the world right now on a personal level, because of what I overcame, because of the muscles that I built having to work through all those different things.
Yeah.
And again, I can say I am grateful. I'm so grateful that I had that experience and that I can use that now to help others heal.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like, the people that you work with, how would you describe them, like in the similar situations, right?
Not all of them. I mean, I will say generally you will attract, your ideal client is you. So what I will say is common is my clients are searching, and they are wanting to connect deeper within themselves. They're wanting to heal on a systemic level, not just a surface level. I mean, so I am a massage therapist by trade, but I also incorporate a lot of energy work and coaching in with it too. So the people who come with me get a little, or who are my clients, get some coaching bookend around the body work. And the intention of that is to find that connection before the session, to connect within their bodies, because they are their own healer. I'm just a facilitator. So that the work that I do, the body work that I do, is that much more powerful, because they are conscious and they're engaged in the process of release. And then at the end is the integration period of, okay, what do you need to do going forward in order to keep this place of alignment, in order to remain free. And so that's really helped my clients' experience beyond the benefit of massage on a really deep core level. But I will say that a lot of my clients are working through past trauma, and recognizing that a lot of it comes from being disconnected and being disembodied. So embodiment is what I do. Like that's the process, is to get in your body.
It's pretty cool when you can start to do that and start to realize, like, I'm very analytical, and I have been for a long time. And I've had my process, of like starting to get connected more to my, like my heart and like feelings. And it's, I'm going to say in a generalization, it's generally harder for guys, right? And I think it's a little easier for women. Can you share something that might benefit someone that's on the other side of the fence right now, so that they can move forward? Like, how do they start to connect with themselves and identify, like, I don't know your process. I don't know if we have to do a process, but something that might be helpful.
So I will say this, I would say 90% of my clients are male. So one of the things that I find is that there aren't very many safe places for men to feel, and for men to be able to let it go. There's this idea that, men are supposed to hold it all together, and they're supposed to be the strong ones, and the expectations of, not getting emotional, and how that's a bad thing for men to be. And I think that's changing. That landscape's changing now. There's a lot of amazing organizations out there for men. But I would say the number one thing that is required in order for that transformation to happen, and that those feelings to be felt, is a safe place. So finding either a person or a place that you can feel it all, and to connect, that safe place to connect with your emotions.
What do you think is, I was actually assuming most of the people you worked with were women. So I was wrong, right? Stupid assumptor. And so that asks the question, like, what gives someone permission to start to feel like in respect to men? Like, is it a safe space that you create? Or is it sharing a story? Or like, where do you find that, like, oh, if I go here, they may open up?
So I would say, and this is kind of becoming more of something that gets talked about more, is the idea of holding space. Mm-hmm. And it really is an energetic thing. It's body language, it's facial expressions, it's the environment. So when I'm particularly trying to hold space for people to be able to feel safe to let go, and to feel emotions, and to get in their body, I think of energetically holding space. And it's difficult to describe the energy behind what I do. Yeah. It feels like magic to me. It's an intention. It's something that I physically feel too. But the result, the effect, is that I can see it in my client's body, when they let go, the facial expressions, the feeling of their energy, and also the way they're able to actually speak. A big part of holding space is to listen. And so, I'm able to ask questions to kind of get them in their body and recognize, oh, hey, I'm like, okay, so you're having pain in your shoulders. When you feel into your shoulders, what comes up for you? Don't judge it, just emotion, a story, whatever it is. What is it what's the energy behind what you're feeling there? If your shoulders could speak to you and tell you what they're feeling, what would they say?
Yeah.
And so really, the holding space is being able to ask questions and then listen and then say, is there anything more there? If you dive a little deeper, is there anything more?
Yeah.
And so, and I do find men are very surprised at the depth that they're able to reach. They surprise themselves, and it really is just kind of an energetic space holding.
Yeah.
And
It's
openness.
really, it's really cool when you can, I think what I found too is like, if you give yourself permission to, okay, we're gonna talk about something, but I need you to just be free to share whatever comes up first, right? And then
Yep.
we'll go down the rabbit hole, right?
Yep. Yep.
And then that leads to somewhere. And sometimes it's like, if from my experience, as a man, like sometimes it doesn't make sense. And if you're analytical like I am, it's like, why am I thinking about my dog when I was 12 years old? This makes no sense, and it's not connected to my wife anyway at all. Like, like, why? And
Yep.
there may be some shame or guilt around something around there. And when you dig
Yeah.
in, right,
Yep.
that's when some things can happen. And that's when it sounds like there's some huge releases of like, oh my God, I didn't think this was about my grandma, you know?
Right.
And
Yeah. I can't tell you how many times that's happened in a session where people are like, why am I thinking about this argument that I had with my dad when I was 18 years old, or, whatever it is, that people are really surprised at what comes up. And it's really those stored experiences that you literally chemically store that stuff in your body, in your tissue. And that's what's that pain is really just a cry from those parts of your body that, hey, there's a release that needs to happen here. And if you can sit long enough with it, and that's the thing is, we're so busy and we're doing, and we're, ignoring our body so much that it's getting to the point where it's screaming out at us, like, pay attention to me, I have something to say.
yeah.
So really just being able to sit with it is so important.
I guess, would you describe it like this in a general sense, that something happens at a younger age, you're not able to express your real true self in the moment because you don't know how? Maybe you're small, maybe it's a very traumatic experience, and then that gets locked in that particular body part for I'm not sure how that works, and maybe if you know how that works, please explain. But then that feeling goes with you for the rest of your life, and it becomes like this numbness until until it really kind of hits like a brick wall of like, you got to do something about it.
Yeah. And I think there's a couple of things that happen. We tend to store certain emotions in different parts of our body naturally. I don't understand the science behind that. I mean, that's getting into like the quantum field. But I know there are particular parts of your body that tend to store those emotions when they're released. But also, if you have a physical injury, if it's like a domestic violence or an accident, even car accident, bike accident, whatever part of the physical body that experiences the trauma, that experience and those emotions are going to be trapped in that space. So unless you are consciously aware of connecting to them and allowing them to release, you will carry it on with you. And it almost becomes like in the physical body, when you have an injury, you have compensation patterns that happen in the rest of the physical body. And on a psychological and emotional level, you have these compensation patterns that you build up because of unreleased experiences, emotions, and trauma. So it's kind of both where you hit a place, you store that in there, and then you carry that on with you. And I don't know where I was going with that. There was another part to it.
Well, I was going to say, the thing that's coming to my mind is like, that part is stored to you and it's not resolved. So then subconsciously you attract, those experiences over and
Yes.
over.
Yes.
And what I have found, and I don't know if you have found this, but like those are the experiences that I avoid, but they're
Mm-hmm.
also the biggest breakthrough.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yes.
when I face that fear, then I go through it, that thing in my body starts to release the tension and go away.
Yes.
Sometimes altogether, and sometimes it's like a breaking up process, but then I get to see like, oh, like for me, like the fear of speaking up for myself,
Mm-hmm.
and now there's not really that fear so much anymore, there's
Right.
still a
You
little
kind of
bit,
figured that
but
out.
yeah.
Well, and the other thing I remember what I was going to say is about fragmenting. You fragment at a certain point when you in childhood, when you do have those experiences, in order to go on, you have to disconnect from it. So you have this fragmentation, and you're 40 years old and you're like, who am I? Because I fragmented from my body. And then that's when you have to go in and do reparenting work and inner child work and like reconnect to all of those different points. But it really just takes that awareness and acknowledgement of that particular pain or experience. You don't even have to remember the experience. If you can pinpoint it in your body, what the emotion is that's being stored there, you can get it to release, and then maybe you remember the experience. But it's not necessary to have to psychologically deep dive into all of the whys and the hows of the trauma. You can just really just acknowledge it and see it and validate it, and then give space for it to release.
It's cool.
Yeah.
That's actually better than cool. It's pretty amazing once it happens.
It is like, I can't even tell you how honored I am to have this gift that I have, to be able to facilitate that in people. It's like, I would do it even if I wasn't getting paid.
Yeah.
It's like I get to do magic. I get to connect deeply with people. I mean, I've had people who say, you know me better than anybody else knows me, because of the ability to be able to release and to get in contact with those parts of them that they've lost connection to.
Yeah.
And it's such an incredible honor. And at the same time, it gives me the confidence and the encouragement to keep putting myself out there, because I'm like, people really need this work. They really, they need to be able to connect to themselves. And I want to be able to
Yeah.
help people do that. So
It's cool.
it's
There's a big giant byproduct that happens. This thing on our face starts to smile more,
I know, right?
which
Yeah.
wasn't present, which usually isn't present, when you're in those states, like
Yeah.
you're depressed, you're, going through all of that, and life just is not cool.
Yeah.
And once you release it, it's like, oh, I could smile again. Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that's the beauty of overcoming depression, is being able to experience joy. I can't say that other than the birth of my children, um, I didn't allow myself to experience joy, and a lot of that was because I was so overcome with the depression. Um, and even when I wasn't, acting depressed, I was still disconnected from the ability to experience joy, because it was a superficial, like, I'm playing this part and I need to be this for everybody else.
Yeah.
But I never experienced that true deep joy. And after, my before and after moment of really feeling joy for the first time again was so overwhelming. It was like, I've heard people describe experiences where, when you're just so cold and you run your hand under hot water, and it hurts and it's painful, because you've been so cold and that water is so hot. And that was the experience that I had. It was like, it was almost painful to experience joy, because it was such a foreign emotion. It was such a foreign state of being. But I can appreciate the fact that I now have the capacity to hold space for deep, deep depression and great joy. And they are, I think, indirectly proportionate, or they are indirectly related to each other. Your ability to hold space for deep, deep pain
Yeah.
is reflected in your ability to hold space for great, great joy. And again, I'm just really grateful for that experience.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So you got this book coming out, that's not a trilogy. It's your stories in it as well as other people's stories, and it's called Her Unraveling, right?
Yes. Yes.
Share a little bit, like, who's this book for? Like, I think it's gonna be the same type of audience, but
Yeah. So it is all women, and it's all of us kind of sharing a part of ourselves, a story, or a practice that um, connects us to our emotions, helps us feel our emotions, be okay, accept our emotions, and express our emotions. And I think that's something that's really, really needed right now, is just how do you do that? If you've never done it before, if you've never allowed yourself to feel and sit with emotion, how do you do that? And so it's kind of each of our stories about how we learn to do that. So I share my experience with depression. I share, how I healed from depression, because I no longer claim that anymore. I have healed myself from depression. I um, am in a place now where I want to live. I I want to experience all that this life has to offer. But at the same time, when it's my time to go, it's my time to go. And I recognize death is just another part of the life cycle. So there's that fear is gone, the fear of death, the fear of life. That has been lifted from me, and so much of that is being able to allow my emotions to flow through me. So I kind of talk about um, forgiveness, gratitude, um, just the healing process, how it cannot be forced and it has to be allowed, and kind of just my experience through all of that. And then, being at a place now where I am still healing, I am still finding different places, parts of myself that had fragmented. But now I do it with self-compassion. And that's kind of the intention that I have in moment to moment, is just self-compassion and learning what that looks like on a daily basis.
I was gonna say, what does that look like on a like a habitual basis, or like if I'm someone observing what that looks like?
Um, I mean, you can't really observe this, but the thoughts that I have towards myself, the judgment, the can, the words that I speak to myself every single day, and being able to catch myself in when I am thinking something that isn't true. I feel it. I feel it in my body. It feels bad. It feels negative. It feels ick. And then so I can stop and be like, okay, where can I have self-compassion? But my presence too, being able to be with people and feel that we are one, that how I treat you um, is how I treat myself. And just that interconnection of, like, when you're with people, you see yourself in everybody,
Yeah.
and then you can accept others because you're willing to accept it within yourself with compassion. And it's not always easy, and I still struggle with resistance towards acceptance of things, particularly inauthentic people, fake people, shallow people. Like, it makes me cringe. But to be able to recognize, okay, they are authentically showing up as somebody who can't be themselves, and I have to allow space for that, and it's okay.
Yeah.
So, just those forms of compassion, of like, ugh, I feel repulsed by this person, and then, recognizing, oh, that doesn't feel good, and no judgment towards myself, of just recognizing, okay, that's just the space that they're in. Okay. So, I mean, that's kind of what it looks like on a daily basis for me right now.
Yeah. It's quite the process. Like like having self-compassion and understanding and forgiveness of others. And then, like, one of the things you mentioned there is, you didn't mention the word, but like projection, right? Of like, I think I'm a piece of crap, but then you see that you call other people pieces of crap all the time, right? And you
Mhm.
don't really own that you think you are a piece of crap, because it's really deep down, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something I see played out always, of like, especially the negative energy that's happening right now, and on Facebook, and all this chaos and tension of like calling people, horrible names and judgment and all of the shame that's projected out there. But to be able to recognize, oh, that's a projection of how they're really feeling about themselves. And it makes me check myself too, of like, when I start to like think, oh, that person's a piece of shit. And I'm like, oh gosh, where am I not loving myself right now? Where am I feeling that way about myself?
Yeah.
So it's just a constant recheck of my projections, recognizing other people's projections, and how if we could just stop taking things personal, we'd probably get along a lot better in the
We
world.
would.
Yeah.
But it's such a trap, right? You don't know you're in it, and everything else is just, what you think you observe, and that is reality at that moment.
Yeah.
They are wrong, they are bad, because they haven't crossed that barrier yet. So that's
Yeah.
where compassion comes from your side of like, they're just a little kid and they haven't grown up yet, even though they might be, 50 years old.
Yeah. And really, they just want to be seen. And by you rejecting them is just perpetuating the problem. So really just seeing people's pain, seeing people and their outcry, and be able to stop and be like, this is not about me. This is about them. What are they needing to be seen for? What is their message? What is it that needs to be heard? And not that it's everybody's job to validate everybody.
Yeah.
And that's something that you decide on an individual basis. Am I in a space to be able to recognize and see and hear what this other person has to say? And if not, then don't make it worse. Just back out, but if you can, hold space for their pain. And I think that would be a really amazing place to start when it comes to healing our communities, is having a place where people can be heard and seen and validated. Because that's really what it is. It's an inner child crying out, wanting to be heard and seen and loved and validated.
Yep. And in everything that's going on in the world today, it's like, it's the difficult thing to understand, because we're so trapped in our own view. We think other people should be a different way, but we really have no clue what they've gone through. Right.
Yeah, right.
And like, I'll never know what it's like to be a Black person. Like, I'll never fully understand that. I can be compassionate, but I don't have the experiences of what it's like to be judged constantly, or have other perceive me as someone that's negative on a constant basis. And that really demoralizes someone's own spirit. And then they believe that they're a piece of crap. And then they act from those beliefs. And then they do, some people do and take those actions, but on the inside, like you're saying, they just want to be loved, and it's when you do witness people and you get to really reflect back to them what you hear and what you see, that's when amazing stuff really happens. It's really cool.
Yeah. It's really such powerful work. And relationships can't be healed outside of a relationship. So we can go out and do our own inner work, but until we really start engaging with other people and connecting with others, that's when the real healing happens, and where it's seen and played out and experienced and really felt. And one of my favorite quotes is, knowledge is just a rumor until it's felt in the body. So you can know all these things that should happen, but until you're out there in the world engaging with people and really living that out, it really just falls flat.
It does, Well, we're wrapping up, and where can people find, Her Unraveling, and where can people find, more about you, if they'd like to?
So Her Unraveling, there's an Instagram account at Her Unraveling. My publisher, which is YGTYM, is also promoting the book. And then my Instagram, I don't post as much right now. I kind of go through these moments where I'm very visible, and then I'm like, oh no, I'm just gonna back out for a second. But I have an Instagram account called Top Shelf Hippie.
Top Shelf Hippie?
Top Shelf Hippie. Yeah, I'm a hippie, but I shower and I like luxury too sometimes. So that is the nickname.
I like it.
And then I'm on Facebook at Jennifer Leigh.
Cool. Well, thanks so much for sharing everything you did today. Any last thoughts for someone who may be in the place that you were on what they can do to get themselves to the next step?
Yeah. First, I would say find a safe place to let go, whether that's by yourself in your bedroom with a person holding space for you, or having to go and check into a psychiatric facility or some other sort of organization or facility that helps people process through depression or anxiety or whatever it is, a doctor, and then allow yourself to feel it all, because so much of depression is resisting feeling the sadness, the overwhelming sadness. And as long as you're resisting it and pushing it away, it's going to be there. It needs to be felt, and it needs to be fully released through feeling. So that's what I would say, is find a safe place to feel and feel it all.
Are you saying people might cry?
100%. It should be done. It is such a purifying act of release,
It
crying.
is.
And I find myself, like, lately, I'm like, okay, I'm going to give myself space to cry. And I go into a space and I'm like, not coming. But then I'm with a bunch of people and I'm talking, and then it wells up and I'm like, no, not right now. So,
Maybe
yeah,
that's
I'm
the perfect
trying to
time.
find that place. Yeah.
Cool. Well, it's been awesome chatting. And yeah, if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out to Jennifer. And again, the book's Her Unraveling. And thanks for being on here.
Thank you so much, Brad.
You're
It's been
welcome.
an honor. Thank you.